What's going on, family? So we're back this week with another meal prep. This week we're gonna do a coconut chickpea curry. It's really simple to do. We're gonna do it over white rice. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and start our rice because that usually takes the most amount of time. So as always, you are going to filter your rice out, get it nice and cleaned. Now when I do that, I like to do for every day that I'm prepping, I will do a half cup of rice. So since I'm on campus 4 days out of the week, I like to prepare about 2 cups, maybe 2.5 cups of rice. And with white rice, for every 1 cup of rice that you do want about 1.5 cups of water. So make sure that you're doing your math correctly when you add it all together. Just make sure that you're cleaning out your rice. That's also important. You want to make sure that it's nice and the water flows through at the bottom clear. So just stir it around, make sure you're getting it as even as you can. Once the water flows relatively clear, we are going to put it into our pan. And again, like I mentioned, with every cup of rice that you do, you want about 1.5 cups of water. And so we're going to measure that out as well. There we go. So I don't have a measuring cup with me, so a good rule is if you don't have that, for every cup, whenever you put the layer of rice, you want it to come to about right here. So if you dip your finger in, it'll come right to that knuckle, you're good to go. You're going to put it on the stove. You're going to bring it up to boil, and once it is to boil, you're going to cook it for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your stove. All right, everybody, so now we're going to go ahead and start preparing our vegetables for the curry. We're going to use onion, we have a little bit of ginger, we have some tomatoes, we have jalapeño, we have cilantro, which we'll get to in a second, we have lime juice, chickpeas, and we're supposed to also use garlic. We don't have any garlic, unfortunately, so you can always substitute it for garlic powder, okay? So let's go ahead and start off with the onion. You're going to cut it lengthwise, you're going to turn it and cut it. You just want it nice and chopped up. So make sure when you're using a knife, very important that you're careful with everything that you're doing. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to hurt anybody else in the kitchen. Just nice and slow cuts. And as you progress, you can always go faster. I used to be a cook at Chipotle. I haven't used a knife like this in a while, so we're going to go nice and slow for today. You can bring your onion back together. It may not be the prettiest, but that's okay. We'll eventually get this right, people. It's our second video, so bear with me. Now we're going to cut it like this. There we go. We got some nice diced onions. Okay. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and do the tomatoes. I like to cut the ends off, which we're going to do. And from there, I always just cut it in half. We're going to dice these as well. I kind of like to get the little thing on the top out. So go ahead and just cut that out nice and gently. You can choose to leave the seeds in there. It is completely up to you. For today, we're gonna do one with the seeds in and then one with the seeds out. So all you're gonna do, similar to the onion, you're just gonna kind of cut it through. Make sure you're being nice and careful with your cuts. Make sure you're going nice and slow. Let's build up those knife skills that we want. And as time progresses, you're able to go a little bit faster. We're gonna take it, we're gonna cut it again. As you can tell, my knife skills are not the best. It's been a while since I've used a knife this big. So all the little pieces that you missed, just go back and get them. And as you can hear in the background, we have our rice is starting to boil, so let's go ahead and bring it nice and down all the way to the simmer. And go ahead and put the lid on there as well. As we come back, we continue cutting. Now, if you choose to remove all the seeds in there, just go ahead and kind of fillet it out. Again, nice and slow. Make sure your fingers aren't in the way of where the blade is going. And if your fingers are closer, you want to go nice and slow. You're gonna do the same thing again. Just nice, even cuts all the way through. A trick to do is you want your fingers kind of resting on the blade. That way you're able to go without worrying about chopping your fingers off. You put it back together. Again, go back and any little thing that's missed, just go back and cut them up. And just like that, we got some diced tomatoes ready to go. So up next, we're gonna go ahead and do the jalapeno. Now with the jalapeno, similar to the tomato, you do have an option of whether you wanna keep the seeds in or not. If you keep the seeds in, it will be a little bit more spicy. So that's always comes down to a personal preference. So jalapenos can be a little bit tricky. Just cut it in half. I'm gonna do this half with the seeds in there, this half without. So an easy way to do it without using a knife. Find any spoon that you have. I'm just gonna scoop all the seeds and the insides out. And just like that, you're good to go. Now, if you choose to leave the seeds in, again, that's not a problem. It will make your food a little bit more spicy. I always like to just do it down in strips, nice and thin. Let's move that one out of the way. We're gonna come back and cut those up again in a second. Bring them together. We do the same thing again, over here. Continue to cut. Nice and slow. Just like that. After I finish this one, your jalapenos are also diced and ready to go. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and add the ginger. So with ginger, you're gonna just peel it. We've already done that. You're gonna cut into nice little thin strips. And what you can do with ginger, you can go ahead and you're gonna mince it out. So what you can do, you just cut into little strips like that. You're gonna take your knife, apply a little bit of downward pressure. So it gets nice and flat, and then from there, you're just gonna go ahead and slice it through like you did everything else. Again, make sure that you're being really, really careful with what you're doing. Keep an eye on your fingers. Keep an eye on the people that are in the kitchen with you. You can do that for and our ginger is ready. So this recipe also calls for 3 cloves of garlic. Today we're going to use garlic powder. It's a really, really easy conversion to do. For every 1 clove of garlic, you want 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and clean our chickpeas. Now you can get these fresh as well, but they taste just as good in the can. You want to drain them out the can. Just like the rice, we're just going to go ahead and rinse them up. And those are good to go. We're gonna use those in just a second. This final part is completely optional. You can go ahead and use a little bit of cilantro. It's kind of more as a garnish, but again, you don't have to. Just feel free to do it if you'd like. So with this one, we're just gonna do an extreme, like rough chop. You can go ahead and use the stems in there as well if you'd like. Now our garnish is ready to go. So this recipe also calls for cumin, turmeric, paprika, cayenne, salt, and pepper. But today, just to save time and again, keep it as simple as you can, we're gonna use these little yellow curry cubes. You can find these at the store. I found these at Sprouts. We're also going to use coconut milk, which again, I found at Sprouts, which is not a sponsor, but we're trying to work on that too. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the onions and the jalapenos on the stove in a second. And then we're gonna add in the ginger, tomatoes, and then we're gonna put in the coconut milk and get everything together, okay? All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and toast up our onions and jalapenos. We're gonna put them in some oil. Today we're using avocado oil. You can use whatever kind of oil you like, or whatever you have in your kitchen. It's usually the better way to do it. So you make sure it's on a nice and hot pan, like that one is. We should be ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and just get a nice little layer. And this would be the time if you use like cloves of garlic instead of garlic powder, you would definitely want to add the garlic in there as well. But do the onions first. Just started to get a nice little cook on us. We're gonna add in the jalapenos as well. Nice and spread out. A nice little even layer. Simmer it. If you want to, you can take whatever little garlic powder that you have. Just do a little sprinkle of it. We have this pre-measured. Normally you would use like the actual can. There you go. And you want your onions to kind of get that translucent color. So now you're going to add in your curry powders, which will be like your turmeric, your cumin, stuff like that. We're going to go ahead, we flattened out the little cumin balls that we had. So just going to put them in there, get them nice and spread out, just kind of let the flavors mix together. Try to get a little aromatic. We just let that simmer for a few more minutes. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and, now that the onions have become a little bit more translucent, we're going to go ahead and just add the tomato. Add that in. You go ahead and add in your garlic as well. Excuse me, your ginger. Nice and spread out. To finish it off, we're gonna take that can of coconut milk or coconut cream that we have. And dump it right in there. You're gonna mix it all around and just let it sit on a simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we went ahead and added the chickpeas in there as well. If you're doing another source of protein, so like if you were doing, you know, like chicken or steak, whatever you chose to do, this would be the time to go ahead and add it in there. Just let it simmer with all of the stuff that's going. But today we're making this a vegan friendly recipe, so there's going to be no animal-based proteins. And once you get it nice and stirred around, just going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, everybody, so this has been simmering for about 15 minutes. And if you could smell it, my goodness, it smells incredible. As a last little touch, you're just gonna chop up one lime. You're gonna go ahead and add the juice right in there. So if you have a squeezer, just go ahead and use that. If not, your hand works just as fine. And get the juice in there. And as I mentioned, it is optional if you want to add cilantro. It's just a little bit of a rough chop. Just go ahead and stir in the juice. Just give it that nice flavor. You take the cilantro, just right on. And just like that, we're gonna go ahead and plate it. Let's give it a test. All right, guys, so it's time to plate it up. I'm really excited to do this. So just get yourself a nice little bed of rice. And again, if you're doing this for the meal prep, I like to do about a half cup of rice per day. You can always add or decrease that depending on how much you're wanting to eat. Oh man, this looks so good. And we're gonna go ahead and add some of the curry in there. Give it one final stir. I wish you could smell what I'm smelling right now, because my goodness, it smells incredible. If you make the meal prep, you'll be able to actually smell it. So we're gonna add just a little bit of the juice. A little bit more. Okay, now it's time for the ultimate taste test. So let's get a spoon. Well, here we go. Let's dig in. Here's yours. Here's mine. It's really good. Guys, you're gonna love this meal prep. So as always, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay engaged, stay active. You're gonna have a great week this week. Yeah, take it easy.